Minty fresh.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, you've been busy, just work. I mean, I have not been having any fun. That's not true. I had some fun. We
You
went on a
need to.
cruise, and then the day we came back, my business suffered a major
you met
ransomware
Shane?
attack, like big.
Yeah, last pleasure being here.
We're just now almost right, and it was April 1st. So that's what I've been doing for 8 weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, it was rough,
Good.
but I'm around the curve, like on the road to Willville.
So Irene, since we're not voting on anything today, should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, we can. I have not heard from Mrs. Hall, so I'm not sure.
2 o'clock, I'll call the meeting of the Budget Advisory Committee to order. If we have a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Bergman,
Here?
Ms. Hall is not here yet. Ms. Major,
Here.
Ms. Howard.
Here.
Item number 1 on the agenda, discussion and overview of the 2024 budget. I believe that's you, Ron.
I guess so. Well, before I got into the presentation, I didn't know, I know I sent out the financials for this current year, 2023, about a month ago through the end of March. If it's okay with you, I didn't know if I should just spend 5 minutes to tell you how this year is going and
Please
stuff.
do.
It's nothing too much exciting, but I'll just try to go through real quick and stuff. But so far, the revenues are mostly all coming in on budget or slightly over. There's only a couple things that are really just coming in under budget, and that's we got recreation fees, court fines, and code enforcement fines. They're smaller revenues. Gas tax is still coming in a little bit under budget. Impact fees are coming in under budget right now, and I have an email to the building director to find out, why are they coming in, not too much, but just slightly under budget. And sometimes it only takes one large building or something that pays impact fees that bumps it back up to where it should be. Sanitation revenues are coming in on budget, so are water and sewer, marina fees, stormwater fees. Golf course fees, surprisingly, second year in a, I don't know if it's surprisingly, Paul, but they're coming in. It's under Paul's department, so he knows it. I get excited about the golf course, the way it's been going the last couple of years. Most of the general fund, getting in a general fund, expenditures are at 53%. Most departments are at or under budget. The only two that are over budget are the police and fire, and the reason they are is because at the beginning of the year, we pay the lump sum pension contribution for the police and fire. So usually that'll come back down and it'll even out towards the end of the year. We did purchase a street sweeper this year for $346,000. There was talk of financing, but we decided it was better to pay cash, so we split it across like 3 different funds and bought a new street sweeper. As I mentioned, sanitation funds. We got a new 5-year contract for sanitation. It started last March 31st, 2022. Rates are adjusted annually, but with a max of 3%. So even if the CPI goes over at 5%, the increase can only go up to 3% on the garbage rates, refuse and recycling. The yard waste project that's been ongoing out there, that's completed at about a cost of $959,000. We did buy a new loader this year for out at the yard waste for about $198,000. For the water and sewer fund, consumption use is really at about the same level for consumption as it is last year through the end of March. And as you probably know, board approved rates a couple of years ago at a 2.2% reduction last year. No increase this year, and still slated for next year is no increase. After that, it's at 2.75% for 2025 through 2028. We do have a revenue sufficiency study in process right now. We hope to complete that fairly soon, either in June or July. Marina funds are on budget. It's a smaller fund, about $140,000. And the Marina Fund is out of its deficit position. It used to be, $20,000, $40,000 in the hole, but I think with the new fees for the 17 or 18 slips we have down there, that's operating revenues are now exceeding the operating expenses. So now we've got, I think, a plus $20,000 in the Marina Fund. Stormwater Fund, revenues are coming in on budget. We did have a study completed a couple years ago, but The rates are approved at 50 cent per equivalent stormwater unit to increase annually. That goes through 2025. They do rate studies too. We did one back in, I think, 2021. We're planning on doing another rate study for stormwater in 2024. And the golf course revenues are coming in over budgets. The deficit in the golf course fund is projected to be eliminated this year.
Good.
Since we took it over in '96, before '96 they leased it out, it's been in the negatives every year. And I just looked right now, and cash position is in the positive for the last 3 months, actual plus in the cash account. I never had to worry about investing money to get interest earnings in the golf course fund, but now today it's got $300,000 sitting in there. In fact, a couple months ago when I saw they have cash, I made sure we have an interest allocation program that they will get their interest off that $300,000. So for once since '96, they're getting some interest. I hope it continues and stuff. But the last 2 years, it's just done great. Thanks to Paul and Howard and his staff out there. And I don't know what they're doing, but people started to golf after COVID, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Makes a big difference.
In some places, other places, no.
It must be just the attractiveness of this course here and stuff, and the
Some
well
courses have
upkept
Some
and stuff.
courses have closed because of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one out near me for a while closed. I'm out Cypress, so whatever it's called. We're still working on Hurricane Ian as FEMA, FEMA doesn't work too fast and stuff, so we've got about $350,000 we're waiting to get back from FEMA on Hurricane Ian. And there's one last thing, I don't know if I told y'all, but we had when we did the water plant bond back in 2013 was when it was issued, we got a credit rating of a AA minus, which for a city this size, that was a good credit rating. I didn't know this went on, but they reaffirmed the rating a couple months ago. So we stayed at a AA minus. And they also said, since we had such healthy financials, that when they do it again in a couple years, there's a possibility it might go up to a AA rating. That's about it. I think we did a budget resolution in January. That was just mainly to bring over items from the previous year to the current year that were outstanding. And I don't know if you keep up with the ARPA, but we got $12.8 million. The board has now designated about $12.2 million of the ARPA money.
And what was the deadline for using that?
The deadline for obligating the money, like in the form of a purchase order, is December of '24. Cash has to be all gone by December of '26.
Okay.
Sometimes I wonder, with all these cities with all this money and trying to do these projects, if they would extend it, but that's just my thinking and stuff. But hopefully we get it all spent by then. That's about all I wanted to go over on the current year here.
Okay.
Now for, I guess, the fun stuff you wanted here, I guess. We started working on the budget. As you probably know, back in February, March, the departments started keying in their budgets. In April, finance puts together the payroll budget and the calculations, and we balance the funds. The general fund is balanced again with no use of unassigned fund balance. That's the unrestricted reserves. Revenue assumptions within the budget. I like to go back and I base it on, of course, the historicals for at least the last 3 years. How's the current year doing? I'll look from March to March of the current year. And any other economic factors we try to take into account when we're looking at the revenue projections. Now, the property taxes, as you know, is based on the millage rate and the taxable value. I estimated 5% for the taxable value increase. I didn't know if that would be a little bit too high after last year's 14% increase, which was an unusual year. I don't know if you remember. Usually we average like 6 or 7%.
Right.
So I put the millages in at 5.37, but just yesterday we found out the property appraiser gives an estimate of the taxable value increase. It came in at 12.33%.
Cow.
Yeah. I asked the property appraiser when I met with him last Friday and stuff, and I go, how is this? I thought it was going to go down. And he goes, Ron, everybody, I think with those high values were selling their homes. And if you have a home for 10, 20, 30 years, you're back at whatever base value, and it only increases a maximum of 3% a year. So some of these people might have a low taxable value, but then when they sell the home, the new person gets the joy of paying it. Maybe the taxable value is 200,000. The new person buys it at 400,000. Now that new person is paying millage rate taxes, property taxes on 400,000 instead of the 200,000. So that's what he said attributed to a lot of the increase. So that's. I'm welcome to that. It helps balance the budget. It's not in the budget yet. I just did the 5%.
Right, okay.
Water and sewer fees, no increase per the ordinance, as I mentioned earlier. Sanitation contract, a new contract with the 3% max, and the stormwater fees at the 50 cents per ESU. Expenditure assumptions, I put in the budget so far, police and fire union contracts, which are under negotiation. I funded 3% in the budget that we have. General employees also 3%. There are total of 6 new positions. There's 3 new firefighter paramedics that are fully funded by the SAFER grant from FEMA. They're fully funding this grant. Last time we had one of these about 3 or 4 years ago, they only did 75%, 75%, 35%. But now when they came back and they said they're paying all 100% for 3 years, but at the end of the 3 years, the city has to absorb those costs. And the other thing we have is they came just last week, the county came back. We've been trying to I know the fire chief has been trying to get them to do this, but 3 new firefighter paramedic positions to fund the rescue transport vehicle. They're going to start at April 1st, so they're going to fund till half of the year for 3 positions. The rescue transport vehicle, we don't have it yet. The county approved last year paying it. It's one of those big red box things. And I think the cost is $290,000, which the county is going to pay the whole $290,000. I think that's a cost on our purchase order we put in when we did our bid, was $290,000. And now these would be the staff to occupy those vehicles, to man those vehicles. So that was a welcome surprise last year. I know Chief's been pushing for this, and along with the SAFER grant, those grants are a lot of work to put in for. Health insurance increase, we don't know the increase, I put in 10%. Property liability, we heard the property insurance was going up. I guess, I don't know if it's because of the hurricanes and stuff. So our HR director said, it's looking like 50% when she went to talking to our insurance company. So I budgeted 50% for property, liability insurance 10%, workers' comp 10%. And those are all estimated for now, but as a placeholder.
When do we know what these will
It's
actually be?
It's usually not until August. I know I keep bugging the HR director, and from my past years, it's not until August we finally find out.
Did she indicate why it might be going up a bit?
Well, I think with the hurricanes and
Oh,
stuff.
with the hurricanes, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you said that, okay.
This is just an overview of the budget as it sits. Highlighted in yellow, the total city budget's $80,985,000. It's an increase of 7% over last year's original approved budget. And the 5 largest funds are, the general fund. Its increase is highlighted in the goldish brown colors, 4.38%. Most of its pay increases, insurance, the insurance like the health insurance. Also, I did mention in there the funding the police and fire, their contributions for their pensions. That's about $200,000 this year, because I just got the actuary reports last week. Water and sewer fund going up 7.17%. It's mostly operating and capital cost increases. We're finding a big increase in operating costs over the last year and a half. All the departments, all the funds, and it's especially hitting in the water and sewer fund with their operations at the water plant and the sewer plant. I went back to the water plant. I've got, it usually average maybe 5%. Last year it was the actuals from 21 to 22 were 12%. Through April of this year, comparing to April of last year, we're up 18% in operating costs for the water and sewer fund. So we're seeing quite an increase on all the operating costs. And then for capital too, you're going out to bid for a project, they're not going down, they're going up substantially. Some project that might have been budgeted at $1 million is coming in at $2 million.
Any themes across those increases or just
Across the board. And so.
across the board?
If I could add to that, I'm the one that brings all the increases to the board of commissioners, and after a while you say, whoa, this is gonna have an impact. And I'll give you an example. One of the ingredients, if you will, for our water is carbon dioxide gas. It's part of making that water come out of RO. It's naturally unstable. It wants to grab things off insides of pipes, and so we need to add this alkalinity stabilizing with the CO2 gas. That alone went up 89% almost overnight, and this is across the board to all water suppliers. Geopolitical things happening. Apparently, there's a worldwide shortage of CO2 gas, and it's like that. I mean, just thing after thing. You know, there's a lot of discussion. Is this going to be sticky, where it just stays there? Is things going to come back down again? Nobody really knows. I think some of it will come back down, but some of it won't. So it just makes our cost projections even more challenging right now.
Yeah, that's challenging.
Well, we're doing the water and sewer revenue sufficiency study right now, and we're especially finding this out with the current rates. 0% increase, 0% next year, but with the increase in operating, it's really eating into what capital can we do, to the point where if we're trying to keep the 0% increase next year, it's how much capital, I hate to say if any, we could do. It's that, it's just eating into the capital for the water and sewer fund.
Yeah, and there's really not much you can really do about it, likely, right?
Yeah, I mean, you need those operating supplies to operate the water plant and the sewer plant. So you can't really turn them off, I don't think.
We're going to come up with our best options for the city manager, and with the idea of, we understand the commission's direction of keeping costs down for the customers, and we'll do everything we can to keep that going.
That makes sense.
Okay, penny fund, that's just basically the capital project that's are allocated and designated by the board. ARPA fund, mainly I just got those as placeholders right now because they designate the project. I just never know what projects are going to get started. Hopefully they all do this year. Some have started, some are in the design phase. So hopefully we get those going and get them. So like you say, so we got all our cash out the door by December of '26. I got to say though, when the cash is in the bank, I'm earning interest at almost, I say, well, some of the investments up to 5%. So I'm not complaining. Yeah, I know. So this is the revenues by source for the total city. Just trying to show you, okay, 23 to 24 what we budgeted. Of course, the taxes the biggest increase, so 1.1 million, mostly property and sales taxes. Permit fees. Increase of 178,000. That's mostly the building permit and impact fees. Intergovernmental, the 4.3 million increase. That's mostly, last year I budgeted the ARPA money back down in reserves, but this year it was better to be placing it up with the intergovernment where the revenue would be. Because last year was the first year and I wasn't sure what was truly going on. Charges for services, that's highlighted in the 34 million. That's our biggest revenue source, and that's mostly the water, sewer, garbage, stormwater services of the city. Probably a big chunk of that, 1.5 million, is the new contract with the garbage contract, hauler waste management. Fines and forfeitures just going down a little bit. That's an erratic revenue source. It's small, but I never know how many court fines we're getting or code enforcement warrant fines. Interest earnings, going up with the rate of return increase. I'm trying to think, nothing else really to note, I don't think there. And then the graph on the bottom is just showing highlighted that the charges for services, the biggest revenue is 42% of the revenue sources, followed by taxes at 27%. That's the total city revenues. Now on expenditures, total city, going across the top, personnel services highlighted 33.6 million, increase of 2 million, mostly the pay increase budget at 3%, the health insurance increases and increases like the police and fire contributions for their pensions. Operating services, like we're talking about the operating cost increase, almost going up 2.5 million. And that's basically like cost of operations across all funds. Capital outlay, we're up about 391,000. The debt's up about 172,000 because we've got a third fire truck that's under a lease right now, and that's just starting this year. We've got 3 fire trucks currently. The ladder truck, the last payment will be next year. And I believe that the next truck, ladder truck, has 3 more payments, and then this new one will have 5 payments. We did 5-year leases on all these fire trucks.
The credit rating for the bond that you had,
Yeah.
would that impact any other financing that the city does? Like, kind of reduce the rate of anything?
I mean, it helps. To have a AA- rating, yes, that's a.
That'll be nice.
Let me see, where was it? Interfund transfers, utility interest. What I mean there is since we pay interest on utility deposits. So since the interest rate is going up we base it on the average from January to June. So I know that the particular account that we base it on is going up might be a 4% average for that period of time. So people that have utility accounts have their deposits there. So that's just, I'm probably gonna have to pay more interest on those deposits that people have with the city. I think that's about it with that one. I'd say for the total city, the biggest expenditure on that bottom graph, the 42% is the personnel services. Getting into the general fund, let's say it's increasing that 1.3 million, 4.38%. I probably, the pay increases, insurance, and the union, the police pensions and fire pension increases. A graph for the general fund revenues. The biggest revenue is the taxes at 17.8 million. The biggest increase is the 855,000 for the property taxes. And then going down the line, they're all permit fees, 157,000. Intergovernmental, 218,000 increase. Fire and EMS, 302,000. It usually wouldn't be that much, but since we did the half year for the 3 new positions, we increased the funding, the 150,000 for those 3 new positions that the county is going to provide the city. Fines and forfeitures, I probably went over that one. That's the court fines and code fines that have decreased, interest earnings. Then at the bottom of the general fund, taxes is at 55%, the highest revenue source for the general fund. I always like to show the top 10 or 12 revenues of the general fund. There's like 150 line items of revenues in the general fund, but these are the main ones I monitor because any of these ones take a downturn,
Big impact on the.
I'm in a little trouble. Okay, well, not too much trouble, but a couple of them do. Never like Duke Energy with the utility tax electric and the utility tax franchise fees. Sometimes with Duke, you ask them if there's going to be rate increases, decreases. They seem to always be changing and stuff. But all these are all 12 of them are positive increases. The highlighted one is a 649,000 for the property taxes based on that 5% taxable value increase, which will be more now since we have the 12.33. Those 12 revenue sources are 81% of the general fund budget. This is the graph I think we always like to show every year. It's the property taxes. It's basically what makes it up. It's based on the 2 top graphs, the millage rate at 5.37 and then the taxable values. The graph on the far right, taxable values, it's at 2.6. That was based on the 5% estimate of the increase. You take the millage rate and the taxable values, and then that's what revenues you're getting. So on the bottom graph, that's what we've budgeted so far in this budget at the 5% increase of the 13 million. Just like to show the history of what went on back when we did actually have a decrease in the taxable values from 2008 to 2013 during that period where the revenues went down like 1.5 million. Hopefully we don't go through that again, but. General fund expenditures, the biggest increase and highlighted in yellow is almost 1.3 million for personnel. Personnel down in the bottom graph is almost 73% of the general fund expenditures.
Ron, could we jump back one slide? I just had a question.
Sure.
So, keeping in mind the revenue funds that you're monitoring, and you've got sort of budgeted a revenue increase for the major revenue accounts, was there any indicators in 2008 that you sort of could tip you off if there was going to be any kind of slump at all?
That back in 2008, that just sort of came upon us with all the bank lending issues, and I'm trying to remember the one bank name, and
yeah, and it was a long time ago. I was just curious if it showed up.
I still remember
anywhere.
that summer when we started to hear things and stuff, and
Yeah, or not this chart in the actuals rather.
But going back to when COVID started, that's when we're sort of go, what's going to happen here and stuff. So that's when we started, you were probably here, and we
decrease
reduced
a
the
bit,
revenue
yeah.
projections, especially the sales taxes and stuff.
Yeah.
I try to get out my crystal ball, but sometimes,
It's
you know,
hard.
you know, I
It's
don't.
hard.
I talked to a lot of other finance directors too, and we
That's right, yeah, you
we
do
mull
the
it over and
comparison.
stuff. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, you do a lot of that. That's good.
I think I was up to that one. Whoop, sorry. I probably go over this one, but just in case anybody haven't, though, this is just the CRA, and just to give you a little history of what it is, it was established in 2001. For 30 years, it's a certain area that it involves. It's alternate 19 from Mears to the Sponge Docks, about 1 to 2 blocks east and west of alternate 19. Back in 2000, the taxable value of that area was $41,037,900. And the intent of the CRA is any taxable value over that times the millage rate goes into the separate CRA fund. And that money just to be used for CRA purposes for that area. This is the calculation of it. I won't go into too much of it, but my estimate of a 5% increase in green there was the city portion, you know, with the taxable value with the 5% of that 125 million, the base year 2000, 41 million, left 83 million times the 5.37. So highlighted in green is what we've budgeted, 428,522 of the city money going into the CRA. And the nice thing about the CRA, the county puts into it too. So in December, I send them an invoice and say, okay, you owe such and such, which would be the whatever the taxable value is times their millage rate. So we've budgeted 384,000 right now. We would send an invoice to the county and say, okay, so they pay up and put money into the CRA also. Water and sewer fund is basically the increase, almost 1.5 million. A lot of it's based on the operating costs. As I mentioned, there's no rate increase so far for 2024. We have the revenue sufficiency study in process currently. The largest revenues in the water and sewer fund are water sales budgeted at 10.2 million based on the study that we have, and sewer sales at 6.9. Reclaim sales at 442,000. So those three totals 17,667,814. The revenues, 23 to 24, total charges for services, almost 18.5 million, an increase of 523,000. Revenues, like I say, are based on the study that's going on. A little bit of increase in the interest earnings. Capital budgeted, no, I'm sorry, that's just the reserves. Going to reserves is a little bit more. And down in the bottom graph, charges for services make up 84% of the water and sewer fund budget. Expenditures of the water and sewer fund, personnel, operating capital, as you highlighted, personnel's at 7.3 million is the largest, which is 33% on the graph down below. But as you can see, highlighted in the rust color, whatever color that is, the biggest increase is, of course, what we've been talking about, the operating costs at the 1.4 million is what we've got budgeted. So that's the biggest portion of the increase for the water and sewer fund. Sanitation fund is the third largest fund in the city, a budget at 8.2 million. It's going up about 598,000, mostly due to the new contract and the 3% increase. The largest revenues of the sanitation fund is sanitation fees, almost 6.4 million, recycling fees, 924,000, and then tipping fees, 490,000. That make up 7.8 million of the 8.2 million budget. And this is just another graph. I get the feeling you see these same graphs over and over again. It's sort of dividing out the revenues by, you know, the charges for services, which is the largest portion with an increase of 550,000. And down below it's stating that charges for services is, yes, 97% of the revenues. Expenses of the sanitation fund is almost 6.8 million, and that's mostly to pay the contractor, Waste Management, for picking up the refuse and recycling. That's the biggest increase of 493,000. And down below it's saying, you know, operating services are 82% of the sanitation fund budget. The expenses of the sanitation fund, we've got what we pay for solid waste, or we call it refuse contractor, 5.3 million. Same contractor as waste management for recycling. That's about 770,000. And then the yard waste contractor, that's going out for bid right now. They're the people that haul at the landfill, the ground up waste away for the city. Like I said, the new contract for refuse recycling started last March 2022, goes through March of 2027. The city has an admin fee we add on for 20% to handle all the costs of the personnel that work in the sanitation fund and any other expenses. Stormwater fund has a budget of 2.1 million. Stormwater fees, a budget of 2 million. The rate for the equivalent stormwater unit will be 10.15 next year. That's the 50-cent increase. And those rates at 50 cents per year are approved through 2025. Stormwater, the biggest expense is the personnel at 730,000, an increase of 47,000 over last year. And down below, you can see that again, personnel is almost 36% of the stormwater budget. I just thought I'd throw in here some of the major capital projects in the budget. Now, the water and sewer may be changing. These are some that are in there because I know we're going through the revenue sufficiency study and going through the capital, but I just placed what had been out there. The plant electrical system at 1.2 million, water line replacements, 250,000, well field improvements, 275,000, force main improvements, 300,000, sewer manhole, sewer line improvements, 300,000. That totals 2.3 out of the water and sewer fund. In the penny and impact funds, we've got police vehicles, 475,000. We have a reserve for the fire station of 1.3 million. This is fire station 70. It needs to be replaced. I think it's 50, 60 years old, and it's having some issues. But we reserved, in the current year budget, we reserved off 1.1 million. The plan is for 1.3 million next year, and maybe, I think, 1.5 million the year after that. And hopefully after those 3 years and some other money, we've got 5.5 million, but we're not sure if that's going to be enough right now for the station. They're going out for design right now, and we're going to find out what they estimate the cost of a new fire station 70 would cost. Fire department needs new radios, a radio system for 301,000. River and bayou dredging, 1.1 million. Brick Street road reconstruction, 300,000. Sidewalk improvements, 100,000. So for those items on there, they total 5.9 million of CIP. The last slide. This is just a schedule we've got for the upcoming budget process. Your budget advisory meetings, we're thinking today, the Thursdays, today, the 1st, the 8th, the 15th for budget advisory with the departments. June 6th is the first. The charter was changed, which seems like a good idea, have a public hearing on the budget to bring the public in and see what do they want to see in the budget. So June 6th is going to be the first public hearing on the budget, next Tuesday. Hopefully, I know they're trying to get the word out there and get the people to come in so we can find out what they're looking for. Yeah, I know I said that the property appraiser sends in the estimate of the taxable value increase. That was yesterday. But the official certified comes in on July 1st. Well, we'll get the certified values. Well, July 7th, we hope to get the budget book to the commission. July 12th, first budget workshop with the board. July 18th, second budget workshop. And then with the millage rate, you got to set the maximum millage rate the state wants. So there's certain forms we have to submit, a DR 420. So on the July 25th meeting, that'll go before the board to say, okay, and usually what has happened for the longest time, we've just kept the same millage rate at 5.37. You can't go up from there once you do that, but you can go down from the 5.37. Third budget workshop scheduled for July 27th, and if a fourth one is needed, we've got August 3rd. September 6th would be the first public hearing on the tentative millage and tentative budget, and then September 20th would be the second and final hearing on the millage rates and budget. And I think that's all I got for you. I'm open for any questions you got.
Question. Go back to your second slide. When you propose the budget process.
My
to
second
date,
one?
You said the general fund was balanced with no use of the unassigned fund balance, the unrestricted. Last year, you expressed some concern about the size of the unrestricted reserves. You still have a concern about that?
We've maintained 8.8 million for the last 6-7 years. But as a percent, we're supposed to, we base the unrestricted fund, we have a fund balance policy. We're supposed to maintain 20% of the expenditures as unassigned fund balance. But our expenditures keep going up. So at one point, a few years ago, we were up at 37, 38%. Now we're down like 30%. I mean, we're still well over the 20%.
Okay.
There's a lot of cities, I think they're envious that we have that. I know Dunedin is struggling to keep their fund balance minimum. They're hovering below it, I think, right now. But so that's my main thing, because it's based on the expenditures, and if they keep going up and we keep staying at 8.8 million, that 8.8 million is getting,
It's getting closer to that.
that minimum's getting closer to the 8.8, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
I have one question, but I want to wait to see if y'all have any before I ask mine. I know the purpose of today was 2024, and thank you for the overview. It was thorough, as always, so thank you for
I try
that.
not to give too much.
I have a question, just separate, more related to current news. It looks like everything with the debt ceiling is going to kind of pass, but it's still not sure about it. Just curious, is there anything in particular you're looking at if it doesn't pass where we may be impacted?
Well, when I first started hearing about it, and we have some treasury bills, we've been getting 5% on some. But my first thing I go, when's my next maturity? Because I was worried, are we going to get paid for that?
Yeah.
My next one that matures is July 31st. I go, okay, I've got a couple months now.
Okay, so 2 months, okay.
But that was the one thing I was like,
Staggered, if I remember right.
I usually try to have them every month have about I've liked the $1 million number, so $1,500,000, but mostly $1 million staggered out.
Is the one in July quite large, or?
$1 million.
Okay.
It was a one-year treasury bill for $1 million. Yeah, but that was my one concern.
Okay, but no other major things you're kind of,
I had another concern. It's more with the banks
yeah,
and the smaller banks. What was going on with Silicon Valley, those banks, and we had some money with Bank United. I don't know. I get nervous. I call it when I can't sleep at night and something's bothering me, And I came in. We had money. It was down to like 2.3 million in a money market, and I brought their bank up on their share price, and it had gone down from $40 a share to 19, and it was 17, 16. So I started getting a little heebie-jeebies. And then I saw an article with Bank United on the other coast, and there was something about properties and real estate and stuff, and that sort of put me over the edge. I went to Mark next day and said, I'm taking out the money, so
okay, so you went ahead and,
I closed out the account.
Okay.
Yeah, I still watch it. It's still like $19 a share, but hopefully it makes it, because I like the people that work there and stuff, because we've had a lot of money there over here with money markets and CDs, but
great.
I felt better closing out so I could sleep the next night.
Thank you.
So you're over the FDIC limit, I guess, of 250,000?
Well, no, but we also have, though, and with the state of Florida, any money markets, bank accounts, it's qualified public depositories through the state. So anybody that has CDs, our checking account, money markets, they have to put about at least 50% of that money up with the state, and they've got a collateral pool with the state. I think they've got, I can't remember, 20, 30 billion up there. Just for that bank, if Bank United did go under, we'd be going up there to get the money and stuff to the state, along with the 250,000. I just didn't want to go through that, though. That's. I felt better just getting the money out of there. I can put money back at some point. Maybe they get better and stuff, but that was about my couple main concerns the last couple months.
But so with that said, you said that in 2008, that was the one thing you noticed is some grumbling, some problems with banks prior to, and there's grumbling and problems with banks right now.
Right. And that's part of why I moved that money out of the Bank United and stuff. We have our other account with Chase, so I don't know. Hopefully that's the bank that's too big to fail. That's our main checking account. Other than that, we've got the Treasury bills and some federal instruments that are protected. We've got to follow the investment policy, so I can't go off and make any wild investments and stuff. Not that I even want to.
What would you characterize as wild?
I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
Stocks, I don't know. I don't want something that's going to keep me up at night, yeah.
Any other questions for Ron?
Not for me, thank you.
I guess we have a few minutes till the first department comes.
Did you want me to go over my department? I'm on the end there, but.
Let's do it. We got time.
Did you all have our budgets? I printed some off in case you didn't have them.
I've got it
on
as
my
well,
tablet.
yeah.
Okay. You can
Send
see
it
that
out a
on
few
your
days
phone.
back.
there.
She has better eyes than I do. I did get.
It's easier to
big
zoom
one.
in, actually.
That's all right. Anybody else need one?
No, thank
You know, there's not too much exciting in the finance department here, but, you know, mostly, as we mentioned, they're budgeting for the personnel increases of the 3% and the health insurance. That's why the personnel and the finance is up $14,000. Operating is pretty much stable. And I don't know if you've all felt comfortable with what we call the interdepartmental allocation between the funds. That's why people usually say, what's this credit balance of $150,000 in the finance department here? And the reason we do that is we have the county gives us money for the fire department and the library. The more expenses we have there, allowable expenses, we get more money from the county for fire and library. So what the process that's been acceptable is by the county is by, you know, crediting the fire, in our case, the finance department, and then charging the fire and library departments. They offset, they wash out. It's just crediting the fire department, charging the fire and library departments. Same goes for procurement and a couple other departments where we do the allocations. There's not much else there. I don't know if there's anything, you have any questions on the fire department, but, you know, I'm looking for an accounting manager. You'll see a vacant position there if anybody's interested. I also need an assistant. I've been standing on the street corner with my little spinny sign. I've also got utility billing under me, and it's about the same. It's personnel's up, basically the pay increase in the health insurance. Decrease the other contractual about $5,000. We're fully staffed down there now, but there was a while where we had a temporary person there. So we gradually trying to decrease that amount to the $5,000. So in all, that department operating-wise is going down $9,000. I'm very happy we've been fully staffed. I hate to say, like, as soon as I say that, somebody leaves and stuff, but I got a manager who's been there 3 years. She's getting more comfortable. We've got, you know, 3 meter techs that are doing a great job, so good department. That was the utility billing department. Then the meter reader department. Same thing with the pay increases of personnel. It goes up a little bit more because one of our meter techs signed on for family coverage. So that increases the city pays for like 54%. If somebody gets a coverage like family coverage, the city pays for 50% of it. So there's a new employee that had signed on for family coverage. That's why the health insurance went up more than just the 10%. Nothing. Operating expenses went up $2.8 million. They need a new car, a truck, so that's the $46,743 for the new vehicle. Other than that, I don't know if you have any questions on our the finance, utility building, meter reader departments.
I don't.
Okay. Nothing else for me.
Okay.
Did you want to go ahead and do Renee?
Let's do it.
I don't know if you're ready.
We can do this. Renee Vincent, I'm the planning director. Nice to see everybody. We have a pretty simple budget. It's mostly personnel and professional services. As you can see, the professional services line item decreased dramatically this year, so we're getting caught up in some planning efforts that were really kind of behind schedule the last couple of years. So we're finishing up the comprehensive plan. We have a cultural survey underway for the Union Academy area, and we have the Greektown Conservation and Placemaking Study going on. So that was the kind of the bulk of that that budget that you saw last year for those professional services. So this year, what we do have remaining for professional services, we manage the Connect Tarpon and community engagement platform, so there's an annual cost for that. We do have, last year we started setting aside money in professional services specific for our development review process, where we have to pay our engineers of record to review stormwater, review applications, developer applications, to make sure that they're meeting our stormwater requirements. So that is a service that we farm out, if you will. We don't have engineers of record on staff that do that. That, last year, it'll preliminarily budgeted 50,000, was way more than we needed, so that's been reduced down to 30,000. So far this year, we've spent about 16,000 of that for plat review, and we're still in process of getting, for engineer of record reviews. We're still getting a land development code amendment process so that we can pass through some of that cost to the developers. So that's in process. We haven't completed that yet. Couple of other things where you see some increases in our travel. In our travel per diem, in the past, we just weren't budgeting for hotel costs when we send people to conferences, so you see that as an increase. And our legal ads that just continues to go up, and those are required publications for rezonings, comprehensive plan amendments, anything that requires public notice under state statute and our codes. So those costs just kind of continue to increase. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions. I think I've covered the bulk of the changes.
Any questions? No, thank you.
Wow, y'all are great. Thank you very much.
It's easy when you go down $170,000.
Yeah, exactly. Less is more.
Procurement?
From procurement?
Yep.
Good afternoon, Janina Lewis, Procurement Services Director. I recognize that one from last year. Okay. So pretty much, I'm going to be short and sweet. We have decreased our budget this year. We were fortunate enough to be able to fill our third vacancy, which meant we didn't have to require as much training. We do require training, however, so, I mean, it's not a significant amount, but for continuous learning points and to stay abreast of all of the knowledge in our field, I do feel it's necessary that we have something in there. So I've kind of budgeted at least one, I call them like a core kind of class for our curriculum, and that's pretty intense, like at least a 3-day requirement for each one of us to attend some kind of a training. And we pick, different ones so everybody can brief the other ones on what we've learned. The second area I've decreased is in my operating supplies. This will be the first year we did not need new computer equipment or any IT equipment. Everything else, I have to say, has pretty much stayed the same. Let me see here. I did think that I hate to say it, but as Renee just mentioned, we do a lot of publication. We do have to publicize announcements for bids. So unfortunately, that didn't come down yet because we are still working out there is a new law that came out. We're working with the county on how to do publicizing of our bids. And once that occurs, hopefully we'll only have to do one announcement a year, which will save us about $1,200 a year. And any questions after that?
Not from me, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you, did you all get, I sent something out, I believe it tries to summarize, I hope it helps, each department,
Yeah.
the budget, the increase, and just a brief explanation. And so we started that last year, so hopefully it helps out.
Oh, that again, one more time. What's in your hand? What'd you? I'm looking at the. Oh, yeah, I did see that one. Yeah, this was attached. Did y'all see
Yeah,
that one?
it's listed as totals.
Totals, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that on the
While we have a minute, I'll ask a question. On the reclaimed water sales, the 400 and some thousand, does the golf course pay for their reclaimed water? I know they use a lot of it, or is it like part of the deal for the golf course? Or
Yes,
is that an interdepartmental transfer?
There's an agreement, they pay $1,000 a month for their reclaim.
So that 400,000 is for everybody else, not, that doesn't include like some lump
But-
sum for them?
That's all
that's-
reclaim sales,
okay.
includes the
I see.
golf course too.
I just would have thought it was more than 1,000 a month, I think, based on what I learned in Citizens Academy. It was
Well,
so,
it was based on an agreement that was done
which is great, yeah,
about
that's,
20 years ago,
yeah.
trying to help the golf course out.
Yeah. had a fear that that sales was like somehow a big portion from them, but it's not, so that's good.
12,000 a year.
That's not bad.
Ron, if you like, I can go next.
That'll work.
I forgot.
I continue.
And I'll call the other staff to tell them.
Well, you all know me, but Irene Jacobs, City Clerk and Collector. And the clerk's office consists of two budgets. One would be the city clerk budget side, and that comes out of the general fund, and the collection budget, which comes out of the water and sewer. And other than personnel increases, I'm just basically gonna go over operating budget. The clerk's operating budget is approximately $71,115. And we have not increased it at all this year. Elections expenses out of that budget are approximately 65.5% of that overall operating budget. And those are made up of various funds such as legal advertising, professional services, freight and postage, rents and leases. As you all are aware, because y'all have heard me before, our election cycles are 2 years in a row, with the third year being the off year. This next year is supposed to be our off year. But I always budget because you never know when we possibly could have a special election or a referendum. And if we don't use it or don't have those things during that year, it goes back in to balance the general fund budget. We don't just say we have money to use it. And election costs are approximately, for a standalone election, are approximately $39,000, with additional costs ranging anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000. For such things as polling place change mailers, legal publications. We now have bilingual language compliance requirements, where we have to get everything translated in Spanish. And if we do have an in conjunction election, when we have a county or federal election, those election costs are much cheaper. Those run anywhere from $3,300 to $6,900, depending on if it's a 1 or 2 ballot. The only bad thing about that is where we're positioned on the ballot. It's an order, so city questions or city items go lower. We're low on the bottom. Some people just go to vote for those higher issues. Other large items in the clerk's operating budget are recording fees, code book supplements, and copier, and legal ads, of course. On our collection side, our operating budget is approximately $62,000, and one of those highest expense is for our support and maintenance, which is about 32.8% of our budget, and that's for our interactive voice recognition. That allows our customers to pay by phone 24/7 in real time, that posts to their accounts. The second highest expense is for postage of delinquent letters. Throughout the year, those are charged out of non-departmental, and at the end of the year, they're posted back to Fund 42, which they come out of. Those two items alone make up 57% of the collection budget. This year in the budget, as we are advised by IT, we are in need of 3 replacement computers. So the only addition to this budget for collections was $865 to help fund those computers. I thank you for allowing me to present. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Same for me.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Irene.
I notified HR and I sent an email to the Economic Development
Okay,
Director that
Karen?
we're ahead of schedule, so hopefully.
I just
they'll
thought,
be
Tim,
showing
I'll
up.
go over my presentation again for you. I just want, just so you know, June 8th is the next meeting. Is there anything, I always try to figure out, is there anything else that helps you all in looking at the reports I can provide for you, or?
No, this one you handed out, did you send that by email? I don't remember seeing this one.
Yes, but there was also probably 5 or 6 under other attachments and
Last
stuff, so
attachment.
I can send it back out again.
I'll look, because
Okay.
just all the ones I downloaded into a file, that's not one that's there.
Well, I guess Karen's here. I'll let her talk.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, we're ahead of schedule.
Oh, good.
You're fine.
I hope
I'm
that's
just,
good.
I'm just a filler.
He's more of a filler. That's good for you. Hi, Karen Lemons, Economic Development Manager. I have our annual report for the CRA with me.
Thank you.
Review at your The first budget is the economic development budget, which has no real changes. It's mostly administrative. I don't know if there's any questions on it.
How did the original zone get written or drawn for the CRA district? Was it just, like, how did it end up just being 2 blocks, east and west?
Oh, sure. The CRA is governed by state statute, so there's a process to go through to establish the boundaries. There's a study that's done to look at the various criteria for a CRA. They're called slum and blight. Slum not meaning typical slum, but you have to show that it's haphazard zoning. You've got lots that are vacant, undeveloped, poor infrastructure, things like that. So you put a study together, you look at the demographics, that goes to the county, goes to the state, and has to be approved. So your boundaries are based on those eligibility criteria. So you have to be able to prove that that area is in need of revitalization.
Is there an opportunity maybe to include more of the docks on that, like where there's some seawall concerns and things like is that? I was actually surprised that it didn't include more of the docks, considering some of the infrastructure problems that we have just by nature of where they are. That always just kind of made me curious.
Back when the CRA was established, the city did look at the docks area, and there's a lot of public participation in that process of getting a CRA established. The business owners and property owners at the time did not support a CRA, so that was not established. Now it's very difficult for the county to establish new CRAs. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's very difficult. They have high criteria for those, different than what it was back then. They're putting in their tax money to it, so they've really they've changed their processes and procedures for establishing new CRAs. So the chances of getting a CRA in the Sponge Docks area is not very good, but
I think that's a good education piece for people to be aware that maybe there wasn't the support for that back then, and now it's not so hard, just because it's something that I'd heard was like, well, why isn't there CRA for there? And I was like, that's a great question. Why
Yeah.
isn't there? Well, that's a great answer.
and I think looking back now, hindsight, I think it would have been supported if they knew what it can do.
Right.
But that's not the case
About
anymore.
what we're facing there in terms of like this, all of the.
Yeah.
that could be
One of the
done.
things I know that the board has been doing over the past years, the incentives that we have for the CRA, that comes from the CRA funds. Those are only for the CRA and not for the rest of the city. But they have been adding the Greektown area for the facade grant and then the new mural grant that came up. So using general fund monies to provide the grants for the Greektown area, which includes the docks.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Should we just go to the CRA then?
Yes.
Okay. So just a couple things to point out with the CRA. It includes, again, staffing for the train depot. We staff the historic train depot from the CRA. It includes the rents and leases for the 3 different parking lots that the CRA is leasing. It includes dollars again for our historic marker program. It includes, there's $100,000 in there from Public Works, 63-00 is the line item. That's kind of the newest, or the most money that you'll see is a change from the previous year. Those are for, that's money for the Flex Pave. That's the flexible materials that Public Works uses for the tree wells. We have it on downtown Tarpon Avenue and up and down North and South Pinellas. It's a flexible material. I believe it's made out of recycled tires. And so instead of the tree wells where it has the grates and you get debris caught in there or people trip if they're wearing high heels and things like that, they use this Flex Pave system. And it's porous so water can get through it. It doesn't collect the debris and it's less of a tripping hazard. So they want to do that on more of the replacing the tree wells. The Mother Mears upgrades, that's for beautification, new flowers and landscaping in Mother Mears, and that's in consultation with the Garden Club. They manage that area around the cup at Mother Mears parking lot. So that's for that. And then the ground cover, that's vegetation and flowers for mainly the Pinellas Trail and all of the medians and the bump outs that you see. You know, a lot of times they use, I think it's called Peanut. It's a ground cover that's got yellow flowers. It's drought resistant. It doesn't need pesticides. They really like to use it because it's very low maintenance. So that's to beautify the medians, landscapes, bump out areas. Line 8300 under the grant program, that makes whole to $100,000 our CRA grants. Each year, we bring forward the money that's left from the previous year and then add to it so that each fiscal year, we're going into it with $100,000 for our CRA grants. And then just the last I wanted to point out is 99.00, the non-operating, the $100,000, that's the repayment. It's the last loan repayment for the 2020 referendum when the city purchased, or the CRA purchased, the West Tarpon Avenue property. So this is the third and final payment of that loan that was from the sanitation fund. And that's what we have for the CRA.
Any questions?
Everything's looking great, thank you.
I have one that's probably unrelated. I've noticed that there's a building on 19 they started to demolish, and it sits there partially demolished. What's going on with that?
Okay, that was the old Mexican restaurant?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So they left it partially demolished because the owner was told that if they leave at least a wall or two up, the building code would somehow allow them to not do a full redevelopment plan or something to that effect. But anyway, it's the bingo parlor that's moving there. They're putting in a new bingo. It'll be a bingo hall. So they're moving from their existing place on 19 and over there. It's been taking a long time because there's some easement issues with the adjacent property to the north, the mini storage. They share an easement, and so there's been some issues there. But that's what it'll eventually be.
I just wondered why it's partially it was then it stopped.
Yeah. It'll eventually be demolished completely, I believe.
Thank you. Nothing else for your department?
That's all I have, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resources?
So this is. It looks so much better. Sponge it up.
what I, excuse me, Jane Niffen, HR Director. What I'd like to do is pass out, I don't expect you to read it right now, but if Carrie pass those down, it's just a synopsis of our philosophy of HR and what HR does. I'll briefly go over the list of items that we do. I will mention our, which we're very proud of, our Tarpon Springs Wellness Center. I will touch on that later, and then get into the actual budget itself. So, Human Resources Department in Tarpon is very small. There are 4 of us, and our HR assistant actually also serves as the receptionist switchboard operator. So, while we're small, we are very hands-on. We like to think we put the E in human. Hopefully that's what we're here for, because in today's world, we need a lot of positives. We're here to help the employees. We're here to substantially give them the services that they need. So first of all, I'd like to talk about, just briefly go through the topics. One is city benefits. We're responsible for the health insurance, dental, group life, long-term disability, all those insurances. It's nice to know that the city actually pays 100% of the employee only costs for health, dental, and we also pay for the group life insurance and long-term disability. We also, in HR, have administer the IRS Section 125 flexible spending accounts and the dependent daycare. We have defined benefit plans, which are the two public safety people, the fire and police. We have a defined contribution plan for the general employees, and we have 2 457 deferred comps for general employees plus police, and then the fire has their own under IAFF nationwide. We do, as you can say, compensation. We make changes in salaries. We issue personnel action forms to payroll for changes, new hires, terminations, the usual HR stuff that people do. We administer the Fair Labor Standards Act, among a lot of other things. Our city rules and regs, we currently have, I believe it's 21 city rules, and we're fast approaching almost 40 policies. So it's a full-time job making people aware of it and administering these things to make sure things run smoothly and that employees are taken care of. Also, we do labor relations, contract negotiation, and contract administration. As I mentioned, we are the interpreters for the city rules and regs and policies. It's up to us to make sure that we're compliant with the city, not only city, but federal and state statutes. We're in charge of recruitment and selection. And I can tell you right now, that's one of our biggest issues in today's economy is recruitment and also retention. So it's very important, at least from my perspective, that we treat people appropriately. We as a department and most of the people in City Hall and so on, we're not out on the front lines. We have to depend on our employees to provide service to our residents, to our customers. And my feeling is that we had better treat them well, because that's an incentive for them to treat our customers well. We take care of them, it's a quid pro quo. So basically, right now, we're having a little difficulty, along with many other entities, in recruiting. A lot of it has to do with amenities such as working from home, which some of our jobs may lend themselves to. A lot of it has to do with actual money. We're not in the top, I don't even think we're in the top half of the local county. But we're working on it, and we offer other things that we think are a good offset, such as the benefit plan. I brag a little bit about this because over the years we've been able to maintain a significantly better benefit plan, at least as far as the medical. The dental is pretty much the same everywhere, but our medical plan is one of the best in the areas. Our employees have a $250 single, $500 family deductible, and their maximum out of pocket per year is $2,500 or $5,000. which is almost unheard of. It's not a cheap plan, but again, it offsets the fact that we're not in the top range for salaries. So we have a lot of employee benefits that are voluntary, which we manage. They're particularly popular. And then I'll finally end up with the kind of like a pride for the city, at least I think, is our wellness center. We opened it back in 2013 along with Oldsmar. We are in it ourselves now. We offer free services to employees who are actually members of the plan and their dependents, as long as they're age 2 and up. They can go to the clinic, as we call it. They get time off from work to do it. They get to see a doctor, and they get prescribed medications, all at no cost to them and at no cost to the city medical plan, which is very important. A lot of entities are interested in partnering, but while they want to give the employee a deal, they are still intending to file claims with our insurance company. So in fact, that doesn't save the city a whole lot of money. Whereas this clinic diverts a lot of, I won't say a lot, but a considerable number of visits that would cost both the city and the employee money. It's general practice. They don't do specialties. They will refer you. But as a basic, I guess a basic level of care for employees who may not otherwise choose to see a doctor until such time as things become critical. And then it becomes an issue. So we offer the PHA, the personal health assessments. They get a $25 gift card if they follow up with the doctor. They do all sorts of lunch and learns, online tutorials. We have an EAP plan that people can call in and get advice. I'm trying to think of all the other things that we do, but it's all listed in your handouts here. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I'd like to switch maybe to the budget to see, starting off, the main thing that we are finding with recruitment and retention is, especially with recruitment, if we have turnover. Our professional services, as you can see, which is line 31, we have gone up considerably because we are doing far more background checks, including credit checks. When you have turnover, you have to replace people, and the cost of doing these checks to make sure that our citizens are safe, as long as as well as fellow employees, we make it a priority. Nobody works here or even volunteers here now without being background checked and in some cases pass a physical, because volunteers as well as employees are covered by our work comp. So that's why you'll see that we have spent $3,900 roughly, and we've only had $2,500 in the budgets, and we've asked for a little more. I'm hoping maybe we can, we'll see what happens in the upcoming year. Maybe things will settle down. We won't have the big turnover that we have. Operating supplies is the only other one I see that's outstanding. That one has to do with the fact that we are due for 2 new computers in our department. I put in some training and travel because I'm getting to the age where at some point I'm considering retiring, so I'm hoping to train people to be able to take over when I leave. So I want to put some money in training, and of course that takes travel as well. So that concludes my very short presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
Very detailed. No questions from me. Thank you for such a detailed overview.
Yeah, that
Yes,
was
thank you,
good.
Karen. I mean, Jane.
Short and sweet. Okay, can I lead? Thank you.
That concludes the department presentations for today. Are there any public comments? How about staff comments? Any staff comments? Board comments?
None from
Okay, our next.
I do. Is
Good.
3%, is that normal? I mean, I'm a little concerned that you guys are so underpaid, I'll be honest. So you're doing a 3% increase, is that just what? I know last year we did more, I understand that, but I mean,
That's what we've got funded so far, the 3%. You know, it's early on in the process, that's what we put in there. Are you trying to say maybe be able to do more like last year? I guess that'll be up to the city manager. I believe there is some more money that we could do the 5%. What we're waiting for was, you know, a lot of variables here, the cost, but also how much was the property appraiser. Now we found out instead of 5%, we're getting 12.33%. That makes it more open to, okay, do we want to do 5% for a pay increase or whatever they come to?
Is this something that has, like, is there opportunity maybe? I think last year there were some positions that were leveled up in terms of the rates of pay on a case-by-case basis rather than a global, much larger increase. Because while I looked at some of the salaries listed for available positions for the city, and it, like, maybe there are some that are way more underpaid than others if you want to keep them filled dependably, like in the HR department compared to maybe some other departments.
Yeah, and that's usually what, as we get through the process for the budget, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but usually in August, Mark might already be getting, the city manager, things that maybe some people were, positions you're talking about need to get a little bit more increase.
Maybe I'm not remembering last year right. I feel like last year, each department, it was a lot more, it was a different conversation, and maybe I just don't remember this early conversation as well. I don't know if I remember it right. Because I remember talking about some of those things of the positions that were harder to fill and what their pay rates were, and did they, you know,
Well, I don't know if it's what you,
maybe it was later in the process.
usually, like I say, I think the city manager accumulating some things where maybe a department head says, hey, I really need to, I did that last year. I upgraded 3 or 4 positions, some of the lower level positions last year, up a couple grades. So, but what it is, it's all accumulated in August. Mark will put together a resolution along with the pay increases. Say the city approves 5%. But then in like our department of finance, okay, my county clerk 2s went from a grade 12 to a grade 14. My accounting specialist went from a 15 to a 16. And a couple other positions went from a grade 16 to 17. So I don't know if that's what you...
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about. And so I was just
Yeah.
curious, like with the HR department, if she's having that much difficulty, would that be something she would handle later in this process? Because, you know, like, we didn't cover that in this conversation, and I didn't want to, like,
I don't know if
push
Jane
on
was
it, but
mentioning other departments overall. We're having trouble trying to find people and stuff. As like say, I've been advertising
It's
for...
not just pay.
Yeah, it's trying to get people, you know,
I don't think so. It's not just,
I lost one person, you know, over a year ago because she could work from home.
yeah. I think that's probably hurting you a lot.
And my most
too, which
recent
know
one,
why
I
you
lost
can't,
because she
but-
could go back to her other job and work from home full-time and stuff. And my other position, Michelle was driving from Indian Rocks Beach up here, so, but she found a job in Treasure Island, so it was much closer to home instead of driving all the way up here, so. I guess everybody has their own situation and stuff, but it is hard to find. I'm even using Indeed now to try to find people where now I've got getting applications in through that to try to find people.
Which is shocking, considering, I know the city has good benefits and other things going on. It's like a good place to be, and a lot of you have been here a really long time, so I think that speaks volumes, but,
Yeah, and I've gone to we've got a local chapter.
you know,
Yeah, we've got a local chapter of finance officers. I send they shoot out an email about openings. I've got the state group. I got a conference in a couple weeks, so maybe I'll hold a sign up.
it's a beautiful
I mean,
place
it's
to
good
live.
to
Yeah,
get-
Spring, Florida.
and I agree that it's not just pay, but I
Yeah.
mean, pay's huge, and if you're that much lower than every place around, then why would I work here and not there?
Yeah, I guess that's why Jane's trying to, you know, with the benefits and stuff, okay, are the benefits enough to, you know, we pay all the employees' health and dental, and when I had family coverage, I paid 54% of my dependent coverage, so that was a great benefit. And the general employees' pension's 9%. We increased it a little bit, I think, a year ago, you know, from 8.8 to 9%. You know, try to improve that. Some cities are at 10% for the general employees' defined contribution plan. That's not the police and fire defined benefit plan, but
So that package that Mark's gonna put together, would we get a chance to review that, or at least just kind of be summary updated on?
yeah, it's usually a whole package, and usually he tries to get it together in August with the pay increases and every department positions that they're trying to elevate.
Yeah, because it is a recurring theme from probably the last 2 years.
Yeah.
At least the last year, retention. Maybe not in all the departments, but, and if it is something more than just money. You know, I wonder how we would identify what the factors are and if that's something that we could, that the city could look at.
Yeah.
I think globally, since COVID, a lot of viewpoints on jobs and job openings has changed on part of the employees.
I agree. Sounds like we need to figure out a way to get on top of it,
Yeah.
so that Ron doesn't work so hard.
That's okay.
Any other board comments?
You
Okay,
know-
our next meeting is next Thursday. Yes, sir.
I think I missed the public comments, but
Go ahead.
I think you called it out
Yeah,
and forgot that I'm the public. Hi, I'm John Kolianis. I live at 1020 Peninsula Avenue. Am I supposed to give my address? My address here, so,
I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
But we'll
Irene
come
would
say
know.
hi later.
thank you. No,
You personally know.
I don't know if they do or not. I'm a newly elected commissioner, so I thank you for letting me sit here and attend your meetings. I'm putting all your meetings on my calendar so that I can attend them all. I hope that doesn't
That's
Not a
great.
problem.
interrupt anything.
problem.
I'll stay quiet, and it's your meeting, not ours. I know we'll have our chance, but yeah, I want to thank you guys for taking your time. Your job is critical. The budget is, you know, I always say our values are demonstrated in our budgets, right? So Joanne, when you talk about paying employees, that's, do you value your employees? And that's where values come in. And I agree that I think our employees, I made a public statement before I was a commissioner, talking about that it's the employees that are the continuity of our city, not the elected officials. We're, in most cases, cautionary tales. You know, 5 years from now, nobody will remember what we do, but like this guy here has been around, what, 37 years? He started when my brother was mayor, and that was 37 years ago. So, and he's going to be here another 30 years, right?
Still took 37 years for you to follow in his footsteps?
Yeah, well, well, I'm either an oops baby or a late bloomer, so one of the two. So, yeah, one of the things that you guys talked about, when you talked about bank failures, I don't know that, even with FDIC, that there's ever been an actual loss of deposits. Even with banks failing, they're always picked up, but that's just a side note, even though you still need to be protective and make sure they're under FDIC, but nobody's ever lost money. The, you know, you got to be, you know, your job is critical and challenging because you've got, we're at a kind of a inflection point because you see those appraisals went high, so that we have, you know, obviously we're going to get more tax money, and it went up by 12%. But if you look at that one chart that you had put up there, it had also 2008, and you saw a similar big spike, right? And then you see this spike now, and then it was followed by a drop, and, you know, God willing, we don't have another one of those, but they always come. So you have to be prepared for that. And I think that, you know, again, we have to make our choices, but we also want to be a secure city, right? And we've been very secure, and like we talked about, you know, Ron made those comments about Dunedin, which I love it when you take shots at Dunedin. But, so, that's all right. We're better. So we have these reserves, and we obviously want to try to keep them in that healthy area, but then we also want to get our employees paid so they're competitive, so we can retain them and get the best employees. We don't want to get the bottom of barrels of whether it's police officers, firefighters, whether it's our staff. You know, we want to have the opportunity to have the best people and have, you know, an environment that is uplifting, and, we have these benefits, and I'm on the citizens, the employees' pension board, and those benefits are really important as well. So, but again, when people are looking at jobs, they look at their pay, they look at their benefit, their general benefit package, and they also look at their work environment. And I think that we probably need to start looking at ways that people can work from home. After COVID, I'm a CPA and a forensic accountant, and after COVID, or during COVID, I moved all my work at home, and then COVID ended, and I'm way more productive at home, other than I make more trips to the refrigerator than I used to. But it is, and I'm way more productive, and I think that we could look at stuff like that. But anyways, I'm digressing into stuff. But I just want to thank you guys very much for what you do, because it's critical work and it's needed.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think retention is incredibly difficult right now if you can't offer some kind of a hybrid work environment. I know I leverage it to retain employees in my business, and I'm glad you're willing to be open. I know there's IT issues and security issues to be faced with, but if there's a path, I think it would help the city a lot to have a more progressive attitude towards that. And I want to thank you for the insight today. I was wondering about the property value increases and where that was coming from. And when you said that about I think this is a different increase. It's a different kind of increase this time than it was 2008. And I see it on my own street, how many 30-year residents on my street have sold and taken a lot of money with them somewhere else to retire to the mountains of North Carolina. Somebody new bought their home, and that value went way up because they've been homesteaded all those years. Yeah. So that was like it wasn't a false value increase. It was like that came in 2008, I feel like. This is more of a substantial, just the value's been there all along. It just wasn't leveraged for city purposes until they sold it, and the homestead kind of got re-leveraged, and now that's where that base is coming from. And when I look at how many people on my street in the past 2 years have done exactly that, long-term residents, that totally makes sense. It really does.
Yeah,
I think it's
that
the
was
Save Our Homes cap is what
Yeah.
it's called. It's at 3%. And I tell you, I think there's a lot of people that buy from out of state, and they look at the tax bill of the person, they go, oh, that's not bad. And then
It triples the next year.
Well, that's going to happen if I ever sell my home. We've been there for 45 years. So.
Right, and you've enjoyed that, and so, yeah. But on the flip side, that's all these people now, that also speaks to our city changing a lot. But, there's all these long-tenured people leaving for that money. But anyway, that makes good sense, so I appreciate that insight.
So we need to encourage more people like yourself to sell your home and.
Well, at one time we looked at downsizing, because we got two of us in a 4-bedroom house at the moment. But we can't make up our mind where we would want to go, so we stay where we're
And
at.
there's no tax incentive.
Right, so there's a strong tax
Done that
incentive.
too, but then you gotta go buy another place and it's
You
gonna.
do. Okay, like I said before, the next meeting is next Thursday. Any suggestions for future agenda items? Okay, we will adjourn at 3:27.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're making your appointment.
That's right, no problem.